Look in the sky. You can see the horses and the chariots, they ride.
Hello, we're coming to you live from St. Louis, Missouri for Friday Night Bible Study. My name is Teacher Sophie, and I'm here with...
My name is Israelite. So we're here on this Friday night here in St. Louis. And as stated, we are with a live audience. So can our live audience get a round of applause?
And we'll be talking to you tonight about faith.
Yeah.
It's a very popular subject. Everybody talks about faith. But we're going to break it down a little bit and maybe get some input from our audience and how they feel about faith and what faith means to them. So,
Yeah. All right. What does faith mean to you guys, right? Write in the comments what you guys feel faith means to you. What does it mean to have faith?
So we'll go back to our forefather, Abraham. And I think he is our main and biggest example of faith. But I want us to really think about faith, because I don't want to just stick with Abraham and the stories in the Bible. I want us to bring it back to today, to now, where we live in. So really give it some thought on what faith really means to you and how you come about faith. What makes you have faith? Do you really have faith, or are you just saying you have faith? Who do you have faith in? What is faith? So we'll go to Abraham.
Okay.
And see how Abraham showed us his example of faith. Let's turn to Genesis 11.
And where in...
You gonna read this one?
Oh, Genesis 11, verse 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Genesis 11. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said...
I'm sorry, Ezra. Let's go to verse 12.
Oh, verse 12.
Let's go to chapter 12.
Chapter 12.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Chapter 12. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great. And thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran.
Okay. So, in just this, this step that Abraham took here, by just, because it didn't say Abraham questioned God, or that Abraham said, but where are we going? Right?
Well, yeah. Also, he's not Abraham yet.
He's Abram.
He's still Abram.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. There was no promises made.
Right.
Right. He doesn't know how he fits into the whole plan yet, but he's obeying.
Yeah. Yes. He's listening, even without having the type of history that we have. Right. We have the Bible. We have a lot of references and a lot of stories. But Abram is kind of going purely off of faith.
Yeah.
To this new journey.
He's our groundbreaker when it comes to faith, right?
Yes, exactly.
He's teaching us how to do it. And I don't know, as you said, there was nothing for him to go by. He just literally said, okay, the Lord said go, and I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was speaking to my sister one time we were talking about this, and she said we do it today.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really, associated what we do today with Abraham.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we literally, coming into Israel, we leave our lives that we know. We grew up in Christianity. It doesn't matter what denomination, where we came from, but it's Pentecostal or whatever. It's all Christianity.
Yeah.
But that's what we knew, right? We grew up in Christianity. We did everything surrounding Christianity. And then we hear this word and decide to step out on faith from Christianity. And a lot of times, a lot of us have to step out from our families and step out from our friends because they don't understand and they don't get, where we're coming from or what we're doing, or don't understand what we're talking about. So a lot of times we have to say goodbye to the life that we knew coming into Israel.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really good analogy when she said, but we do this every day, because we don't, we're coming in new. We don't necessarily know, all we know, okay, this is the God. His name is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is my God. We're excited, but we don't know the nitty-gritty of what Israel really is, right? And where Israel necessarily is going to take us, right? But we're doing it because we believe that we found our God. And this is our culture, right? And that we are the people. Right? Where our eyes are open, we see ourselves in the Bible. So we step out in faith, just like Abraham did.
Yeah.
And we walk this walk.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think and even just as a young person, kind of like growing up in the nation, it's like we're able to see the fruits of that labor. Because as you said, I didn't. Me and my generation, we didn't necessarily find it per se, we were in Christianity that we found in Israel.
Right.
So we took this big leap of faith, and everyone's against us. It was almost like we kind of grew up and everyone was against us. Ever since we were 5 or 2, we always kind of was against going at a different grain than the world.
Exactly.
Taking a different route.
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel we are fruits of the labor of the decision of the people before us, of the people who made that decision.
You're a Jacob and Isaac.
I guess.
Something like that. No, that's right.
Right.
We did the Abraham, right? And you guys are Jacob and Isaac. It's great how we could literally put ourselves today in this story, right?
Yeah. Sure. I never thought of it like that, but it's a good analogy.
Yeah. Any questions? What do you guys think about that analogy?
I see some thoughts going on. You're not saying anything.
Are we afraid to talk?
Yeah. There's a lady in the back.
She has her hands up.
Yeah, but again, being Abraham or Abram, and then come Isaac, he also had his test, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even though Abram set the foundation and kind of laid it out for Isaac, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isaac still had his test to go through.
He has to.
So every generation has something to give, to grow, to build, to do something. So I am looking forward to seeing what Isaac does. Yes. And what the that test is. Mm-hmm. So I would like to hear from Isaac. What are maybe some of those tests that Isaac may have to go through, or what has Isaac went through?
Like Isaac in the Bible?
Or modern day Isaac.
Oh. But the struggles of growing up with.
Yeah, what are some of those struggles that may test your faith?
Oh, okay, I see. So
But
how
it's
is like, what does it look like as not the
first to
not the
take
first?
that leap,
Yeah.
but
It's-
also
I think faith
struggles.
it's a resemblance of your foundation, because I think when that foundation is strong, right, like, especially when you're thinking about like a child is like absorbing everything that they encounter, like, and they absorb and they watch um, the people older than them, and they kind of see what mantles they take. And I mean, they say in science, monkey see, monkey do, but it's a real, like, as a young person, you kind of are looking to see like what others are doing. You see what your peers are doing, and I think the faith is definitely tested. I think when you like when you enter the world and you realize that, oh, like, I'm the only one here that can represent my nation, or I'm the only one here that can represent my voice. I'm the like, and so it becomes I think there's kind of two options. Either that person can kind of like fold under the pressure of being that representation, or you can kind of grab the mantle and walk with it. So I think that's kind of a way of like testing that faith, kind of like, well, I mean, like, are you confident in your foundations? Like, are you confident in who you are and like what you do? Like, do you like if you reap the benefits of the culture, then you should be, right? Because there's a reason the culture is set in stone and set in place how it is. The culture is set so that we can build a good foundation for our children and also allow them to grow up to have the same faith, even though they didn't make the jump themselves. It's kind of like that passing of the mantle, I guess, from the one generation to the next. For that, it's kind of up to that younger person and up to the community around them to support that younger person and kind of being able to take on the responsibility. It's gonna feel different because it's a different experience, but it's also vital in order to keep the nation growing. And so that's why, even as you said, you're talking about like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, why the God of Israel spoke to Isaac and spoke to Jacob, because just like if you're just hearing the words of your what's it called,
Your
your father,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, that's important for the foundation, but once you kind of enter that word by yourself, you kind of need to make that relationship with the God of Israel
You need
yourself.
to build your own.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
not anymore under.
Exactly, you're not under somebody.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
So like you kind of building like this repertoire with this God that you've heard of, that you know exists. You've grown up knowing, like, with an understanding of what this God has done for your family. So it's now kind of you kind of have to take on that relationship as well.
So how do we build our faith from that, though? I mean, as a young person.
Well, what do you think?
Because I mean, you guys have been under your parents. Right, home. Now you're out there yourself. Now you have to test the God of Israel. Now you have to prove Him. You know. Now you have to. Yes, you have the foundation, but you still have to do the work.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it definitely stems from the foundation.
Yeah.
It's very different than how Abram came into knowing the God of Israel. I mean, his father didn't teach him about it. His family didn't.
Right.
It came solely to him. And he's the one that brought it to his family. But as a young person, the foundation, especially in the world we live in today, where everyone's trying to push you this way or that way, the foundation is really where it starts, because that's that was my childhood, right? And it's up to us really when we're older and we dictate what we do on a day-to-day basis to then continue those practices and also build our spirituality through our own prayer, our own programs, and take control of that for ourselves. So we're able to give that to the next generation.
Right. Right. That's a good good analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point of us doing what we do, right? So that you could carry it on to the next generation.
It definitely comes from great role models
Yes.
as well. And we
Yes.
have great role models here at the Israelite Nation.
We sure do.
And I think
We sure do.
what's it called? Another thing to add to that is also the idea, as you said, like, how do you test that faith, or how do you like express that faith? I think in developing that own personal relationship there's also this idea of the same way how Jacob kind of established that relationship by saying, and you will be my God and I will be your child. I think that like there's a certain age, there's a certain point in which that reliance is gone and it's really on you. And I think when that happens to you, you kind of have to retreat to what you know, right? Like when you're by yourself, you kind of are going to retreat back to what you know, your foundation, your habits. It's just human nature to do so. So I think that's when it's important to start building that relationship, because I think every individual can feel when their burdens are starting to feel like them, like, oh, I have to handle this, I have to deal with this, and I think that's kind of where we start to see that's when you need to be testing the God of Israel, and developing that relationship and be like, you got me, I got you. And then when you start to see things work out, or you start to see some of those burdens being lifted, I think that is when you start to develop that relationship and really test that faith, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a give and take relationship, right?
Right.
Do you feel like you are entitled to ask the God of Israel for things? Like, do you see him as, do you feel like you have the right to ask the God of Israel for something? And what is that give and take for you as a young person, right? Because it's a relationship, right?
Yeah, I think the give and take relationship is just, again, going from kid to adult. You have to realize that is the relationship for your own individual self. And and again, once you test it out, like for me, it was a lot with school. Like I will do all I can. I will pray all I can, go in any program, especially if it's against all odds and everything. And if I will get that reward, then I know. And there's sometimes you wake up and the sun is just shining brighter, and you realize that, Lord, I'm so thankful to be breathing this air. And there's that take, and then so you give just because you're thankful for everything that you have. Especially once you realize that you can do that and that you have agency in your own life, then that comes with it.
Yeah, I think even to kind of alter that perspective though, is that the sun isn't going to be shining every day, and you're not going to feel super thankful every day, and you're not going to feel super generous every day, or feel like worshiping every day.
Or you might not get the answer.
Or you might not get the answer
you
want. Exactly, every day. So I think it's about more than real. Although those moments feel good, and they are good moments, you should enjoy those days. But because every day is not going to be like that, I think it's more so about developing some sort of consistency, which is, I think, why this culture is so important. Because the culture is kind of what allows us to keep feeding back in. Because it's easy to get lost in your problems and to get lost in the bad days. The bad days kind of start to add on to each other sometimes, and then you're like, oh, it's been a while since I've had one of those days.
They outweigh the good days.
Yes, sometimes, right? And in the scriptures we see that. So so it's been a while since I felt that, since I felt super thankful, since I felt like, oh wow, look where I am, or since I've analyzed, which is, I think, why we have, that's why we have our new moons and our Sabbaths and our cycle feasts. These are all moments where we get to stop
and bring us back.
Yeah. Exactly, and understand how the God of Israel is a factor in our lives.
It's our connecting point.
Exactly.
We get to connect again.
Right.
Because sometimes life you could just feel disconnected.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with that said, sometimes we're not going to hear or get what we want, right? We could go to Joseph.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in Genesis 37, we could read about Joseph. Okay. Joseph definitely didn't get what he wanted.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it wasn't just a day.
Yeah.
Or a week.
It was years of wow, I'm away from my family. Right. So Joseph is another great example of
of faith. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wife. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. So sometimes we see the struggle doesn't even always come from outside,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
The struggle sometimes is right in our home,
Yeah.
right? So you're not necessarily, I'm home, that you're safe, right? And hence we all have to have our own experience with faith,
Yeah.
right? With the God of Israel. We can't rely on, she got a relationship, I'm okay. We all have to have our own experience with the God of Israel and with this culture, right, for ourselves.
Yeah, it's true. It reminds me, as you said, like how sometimes home is not it's like, even in the home, there's gonna be problems. There's gonna be things like, I think of nothing like a David and Saul. Like, this is like just within
Right.
Israel. There's
Yeah.
gonna be problems. So,
Yeah, we don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Like, there's constant reminders that Israel is a family.
Yes.
Even inner family conflict that exists inside a family.
Exactly.
We're a nation of many different types of people.
Yes.
So there's
Yes.
always going to be some sort of conflict or
Yeah.
jealousy or whatnot.
Exactly. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamt. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obedience to my sheaf. Obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obedience to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamt? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, and his father observed the saying. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here I am. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out to the vale of Hebron. And he came to Shushan. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flock. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast had devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. So,
So the brothers are plotting against them.
and I mean, this is bad. They're trying to
Very
kill
bad,
him,
yeah.
right? They're just trying to get rid of him, period. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast them into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hand to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph of his coat, his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into the pit. And the pit was empty; there was no water in it. So we know the story about Joseph. They're putting him in the pit, and then he got sold, and he ended up in Egypt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in Egypt, he went through a lot. First he was accused of rape, and then he was in jail, and then he made alliance with, I think was it the baker, and he got out of jail and forgot about Joseph. But just read the story about Joseph. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. It has a lot of twists and turns to it. But in this story, you also see faith, because he did not give up that he was going to be freed, right? Even when and I feel like when it comes to, like, if your brother and sister is going to turn against you, like, you're like,
What is that?
Like, that's like the ultimate,
Yeah.
right? When your brother and he didn't have sister. Well, it's just his brothers.
Yeah.
If your siblings are going to turn against you, that's the ultimate betrayal, right? So he also knew that he wasn't going to be rescued by them, because they wanted him dead in the first place.
Yeah.
So he was literally on his own and with his fate. And he was young, like 17.
Yeah.
And I think about, like, our 17-year-old today. Like...
Yeah, like that, having to go through that.
Yeah. Like, our 17-year-old Israelite children.
I think it goes back to Ezra's point where he's 17, but the only thing he can rely on is his foundation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's all he knows.
Yes.
I mean, again, with him even being his father's favorite, I'm sure his father spent lots of time telling him stories and telling him, more, so it would be like, if anyone is going to be kidnapped and, and put into what, it would be him, because he has his father's told him the stories and, maybe even, explained to him about, all these things with the God of Israel. So, again, when you're in a bind, that's the only thing you know is your foundation. That's the only thing you're going to go to, right? So I think, he had no other choice but to rely on his foundation, where he's from, and prayer and everything he was taught from his father, So he had no other choice. There's no one there to help. I mean, it's like one of us, or one of our children, as you said, a 17-year-old from our, nation being sent to, another country or something like that. And what does he or she do? They have to rely on, on their foundation. So I think that's a great point that you make. It's like when all else, when you look around, you're like, I have to go back to my foundation. Everything that my parents and my elders taught me. In his case, it was his dad, so he literally had to go back to his foundation.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of faith, because of his specific circumstance. A portion of the foundation that's supposed to empower him is what turned on him.
True.
So it's not like somebody else came and did something. It's the family.
It was within.
That's a part of the culture. So, it could be prone, a logical, psychological decision could have been turn you back into culture, because that's what part of the culture did to me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like, we all have dysfunction, but I think that's one reason why his story is so relevant and so amazing, is because despite all that, He stayed steadfast, even to the end when he forgives his brother and says, "Don't worry, this happened for a reason." So that amount of faith in the culture, even though what's happening around you physically doesn't tell you that, that's an amazing story, amazing role model for us.
Yes.
Israelites.
Yeah. I wonder if you remembered his dream at the end when they actually did bow down to him.
I could, I bet he did.
That was years after the
I
fact.
bet so. Because those are the type of dreams I feel like. I mean, if it's written down, then it must have been important enough for him to know that he needed to tell his dad, and that it was important enough dream for his brothers to want to kill him. So I feel like that's probably the type of dream that probably stuck with him, and he was a dreamer. That was that's what he did.
He actually did recognize the dream.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what Elder Jeffrey said, like he could have turned. I feel the same way about Job. Like he could have turned.
Yeah.
Because this is what I've been doing all my life, right? This is what I've been taught. This is what I've been doing all my life. And because you're always doing the right thing, you're walking the walk and whatever, you're not expecting like everybody to just turn on you, right? So it's like, it's good for us to say, you go back to the foundation, but it takes more than just that, right? It takes more than just that. And I know he was 17, but as you said, his father sat with him and talked to him and almost like he got more knowledge than his brothers. Brothers did.
Yeah.
So he also had a sense of self, right? So I think that also helped him on
his journey
this
of where
crazy journey that he was on.
Yeah.
Could it be that he had a relationship himself with the God of Israel by him being young and by him being a keeper of the sheep, and he remember how God of Israel delivered his sheep from the it was something that attacked his sheep, but it was the relationship that he had with the God of Israel. So I'm thinking that it was a relationship that he had.
Yeah, I think so. But also I think that, like, as far as the relationship, he's also very young though. So like, he's young enough to have some individuality, like for sure to be able to develop that, but probably nothing that was like as far as like his life, as far as his future. Like these stakes, I think, raised on him very quickly, very fast.
Absolutely.
And so even those small moments of he's dreaming now. So even as a dreamer, he already has a relationship. He's already getting communication. But I'd say it definitely takes it a step further when you actually have to walk in it, and your life is dependent on it. And you're dealing with like jail and kidnapping, I think that's definitely that's a deeper, that faith it probably needs to sit in your chest, and you got to hold on to it because that's all you got, right? You have nothing to your name, you have a family, so I feel like it's definitely that. I think laid the foundation down, and
even the connections you thought you made.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's but then on top of that, we still have to layer in just the natural human psyche of doubt, right? The natural human psyche of I'm praying, I'm hoping I get out of this, but it's been years, and I just keep getting in one bad situation to the next. But that's how you faith. I think is also just about understanding that God really does not. When they say Godspeed, it's really just not at your pace. It's at the pace He needs things to move at. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's right.
I've never been in Joseph's situation. I just graduated college, but but I compare that sort of having to rely on your own faith to when I left for college, and I know of other people that around my age that have grown up in the nation that has gone through college they can relate to kind of when you leave out of your parents' household for the first time and you have your own battles. You can't go to mom and dad with every like little angst or or anger or conflict. You kind of have to start solving it by yourself. And that's when you start building up your own connection with the God of Israel. And that's why I think it's so vital that the young people in Israel, we have that opportunity to kind of leave the nest a little bit, so that we know like how to fly by ourselves, and how to depend on the God of Israel and gain those kind of muscles, grow those muscles for ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. Come into self.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the Isaac
Yes.
thing. We should be the name on it anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Roseanne, I just heard what she just said. It just made me think about before I came into Israel, I was seeking a job and I could never get a job. So basically I just gave up. I gave up. But then when I came to the Israelite nation and I learned how to pray, and I learned the true God of Israel's name, the Lord God, my father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Once I learned about the true and living God, that's when I got blessed with that job. It's like, when I learned my culture and I learned my history and I learned that I am an Israelite, that's when things start turning around for me, when I learned my identity.
Yes.
Yeah. True. And I think even like the whole, I guess, point is almost like for that you can see like the benefits in your life, right? Like it's not Israel is not just like a, oh, I hope so. Like no, like it's a real relationship, right? There are real benefits to this culture, and it's something that you need to practice. You know what I mean? It's something. Yeah, it's like it's action. It's not just like, oh yeah, like that's a good God. Like it's about that. It's about talking, relationship, and like, hey, I really need this. Hey, I really need this in my life. Hey, I really need this in my life. And you see that like when you develop that relationship, like yeah, He's there. God, yeah, God of Israel is there.
Yeah. He is our Father, right? And we ask for things, and sometimes we don't get everything we ask for.
Right.
And because maybe it's not meant for us. But I think in having faith, you have to have faith that the God of Israel is going to give you what you need, right? And not everything that we want is what is good for us. So sometimes people get disappointed because they're praying for something and it's not happening. And they're like, I'm doing everything right, but it's not happening. But sometimes we have to sit back and say, you know what, just leave it to the God of Israel, because you're doing everything right. It's a give and take relationship, right? He says he's gonna bless us beyond measure, right? He said it. We didn't ask. He said that's what he's gonna do for us, right? And the only thing he wants us to do in return is serve him with our whole hearts and with our whole soul and our bodies and everything, right? So if we're doing what we're holding up the end of our bargain, I think that's where faith comes in. You're holding up your end of the bargain. Now you're gonna have faith that whatever happens, this is the God of Israel's will for my life.
Yeah. What's the saying? I'm gonna botch it, but it's plan for the worst, expect the best, let the God of Israel
Do the rest. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quote by Elder.
Yes, definitely.
And even to add to that too, it's also the fact that it's also about understanding, as you said, like there are the whole idea of like you making sure that you're accountable for your side as well.
Exactly.
Right? Because the God of Israel doesn't just give you things. He's not like a genie, right? He doesn't just.
He's not coming down from heaven.
Yeah, right. So it's not like a genie where things just happen like that.
Yes.
It's like one, everything's moving at God's speed, and then two, also understanding that as a person, like you need to make sure that you're ready for whatever you're asking for,
Mhm.
and like, are you putting in the
You're
work
putting
even
in the work,
necessary
yes.
for that? Does that
Yeah.
even make sense for you?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Making the necessary steps.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's true. Like so, I think it also takes, and I think the culture
takes
is
action.
It takes action.
It's not just you pray and wait,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're waiting, but in waiting, you're setting it up.
Exactly. You need to make sure you're working. Like
Yeah.
you don't ask, for instance, you don't ask, hey, can I get a job? But you don't apply for any jobs.
You're right.
Or you don't put on the suit. You just go in sweats. It's
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah.
well, clearly you're not prepared for this job. Are you qualified? Like, just, making sure you have all those things together.
Yeah.
And I think that's another part of the culture that, like, is very real. Like, in Israel, we want to make sure that we see real success, right? Not just faith and Like, no, we want to make sure we really, we work on ourselves, too, to be the best versions of ourselves, because we want to present ourselves to the God of Israel in that way.
Yeah, we represent.
Exactly.
We represent.
And even to add to that, even in our culture, in those moments where we get to take a step back and kind of analyze our life, and kind of like during the new moons and Sabbaths and our feasts and our cycles, during all those moments too, when we get to be in those moments, that's also a moment where we get to also kind of have that assessment of our lives, have that assessment of how things are going.
Did I give 100%?
Yeah, exactly.
Should I be giving more?
Exactly. Can I work harder here?
Yeah.
Can I do that more?
I wanted this for this cycle, and it didn't happen. And
Yeah.
why didn't it happen?
Exactly. Yeah.
Was I my own stumbling block?
Right. Exactly.
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 So, yeah. So it is not just about saying faith and preaching faith and but it's also in you putting in the work.
Yeah.
In order for that to happen.
Yeah.
Faith without works is dead.
Dead.
I
I didn't know exactly how that makes sense. That makes sense. I was like, what is it? But yeah,
there is no faith without works.
A dream.
It's
a dream.
So yeah, it's it's not. For me, like in Christianity, it makes it seem like, oh, just pray and have faith.
Yeah, but it's more than that. Like,
right?
We want to make
just
sure
pray and have faith.
We want to turn our dreams to gold.
Yeah.
So,
But we know it's not just pray and have faith,
yeah.
right? It's more than that. So we can't blame God when things don't come out the way we want them to come out.
Exactly.
'Cause,
I mean, he's doing his thing.
He is. He promised he would.
The fish are eating fine.
Yeah.
The grass is growing fine.
That's
So,
right. The rain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's still raining, water in the earth.
Right. The dogs are still barking.
Like, that's right.
What are you doing?
If you can feed the lilies of the field,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yes.
Run oxygen through your body, photosynthesis
Yes.
with the plants. Like,
Yes.
this amazing God we have that's constantly
Exactly.
running this world that we live in.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's not there. He's
Right.
there.
Yeah.
He just wants us to have that faith, even in times when we think he's not there, just to know that he is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, and it brings me back to Job.
Job. Yeah. Yeah.
Brings us back to Job, where we know the story of Job.
Yeah. Job,
You wanna read?
Yeah. Showed a lot of faith in his life.
Yes. And it's when someone said, faith is knowledge of self. I was having a conversation and the person said, "Oh, faith is knowledge of self." I was like, that statement alone made me think of Job, right? Because Job had to have known himself, like really, because if you think of it, just think of it. You're doing all these things. You're doing da 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 da. And then all of a sudden, your wife is dead. Your wife is gone. Your children is dead. You're naked on the street, and for me, thinking about it logically, I would be like, okay, what did I do wrong? There was something that I did not do right to get me to this position, right? But Job didn't do that.
Because Job, if you read the story from the beginning,
Yeah.
he's always feasting and praying and doing all
Making
these things,
sacrifices,
making sacrifices just
peradventure.
Exactly. Just in case, you know, my son said something, my daughter said something, my wife, you know, I did something.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, he was constantly making sure that his relationship with the God of Israel
was 100.
was 100,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even when that happened, I mean, in your mind as a human being, and you know, I don't like to put our forefathers in this pedestal and say they didn't think about it as a human being. Because
no, it said it. He did in the scriptures.
Yeah,
you know,
you're going to be. What did
he
I
was
do?
like, yeah,
What did
he
I
did.
do? You know,
he did.
So yeah, to not go into a corner.
But even with him saying that, he's still like. If you read the chapters where he's complaining and he's crying, he's still saying, but it's about you.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
It's not about me.
Always.
It's about you.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of, I mean, he's human, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of him crying and saying, oh my God, what did I do right? And da-da-da-da-da, all the things that he said, it still came back to, you know.
Yeah.
So he did not turn from his faith. He did not say, well, you know, maybe I should be serving Baal instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he stuck to his principles,
stuck-
foundation.
Yeah.
No matter what. He understood that, okay, I know I've been doing everything that
Yes.
I need to do.
Exactly.
So this can't be about just me. Yeah.
Yeah. And even the fact that, you know, I like the beginning of the story where it says, you know, Lucifer just came and visit the God of Israel. Like, what? You know, he just popped up, you know, but, you know, he's part of the family too. He was kicked out, but he's also part of the family, right? He's the black sheep. But he still comes home every often, so often. Right. Although he's bad, he still comes home, checks in ever so often. So it's just even in that dynamic, you know, in Christianity we say, you know, the devil will get you behind me and all these things. It's, you know, we can't see the full picture of this family, you know, and the dynamic of the family.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And even like in understanding, I think even where kind of Job kind of like takes the cake is also that ability to understand perspective and also like to understand that like, well, I mean, all of this was given to me by God
of Israel,
right? Like it's at the end of the day, like he's moving the mountains. He has his plan. He's doing his thing. And although it ended up very unfortunate for Job, and it was a test. I think like regardless, like his like where his mind went mentally when that was going through him, I think that was kind of what the God of Israel, you know, was hoping for, and like was faithful in that Job had that type of faith,
right?
That he would like that even in the worst moments, that he would never like curse against God or like be like, no, I'm done with this. Like it was because it's always about that foundation of like, this is my father, and I'm his, and like I praise him, right? I'm his child. So I think like him maintaining that perspective and never, I mean, I couldn't imagine what he was going through, and maybe like the as you said, like some of like the bad thoughts you may have or may run through your head, like what did I do wrong? Like maybe my wife did something wrong, maybe my children did something wrong, maybe like that means something's going off, like why would this happen? Like yes, you're in that moment of despair, but even in those moments, like it was never about like, oh man, the God of Israel, look what he did to me, I'm done with this can't be right. It's because like that's not what we're,
it's like do whatever you want to do with me, you know.
Exactly.
I'm your like do whatever, I'm your son, but you know, like he never said, you know, I hate you, or you know.
I look at it, I don't know what I saw, but something that says understanding the mission. Like we have to understand the mission, that why we're here, why we exist. You know, it's not for, I mean, we have to do the work, you know, and however he has what, his plans. We got to follow his plans,
Right.
however that is.
Right.
And so it's understanding the mission that it isn't about
Just
me
you.
personally,
It's just
right? It's about his plans and his glory and his mission. And so it's understanding the mission. Once you enter into these gates, you have to take the good and the bad and really truly understanding the mission of why you're here. And none of us, we understand the mission.
Yeah.
It could be difficult, right? It could be a hard road.
I think even like kind of even maintaining I was just thinking about this the other day, kind of maintaining the positioning of like, I may not be the main character, and I don't have to be the main character, but I know I have a job. And like when you have a job, your goal is just to do that job. So if your spirit, your body, whatever family your spirit was sent into, whatever family you're a part of, like whatever your circumstances are, you know that at the end of the day I have a job. So this is my start, and I know that I need to accomplish my job. And so I live my whole life. Whatever happens, I may have good moments, bad moments, but I have a job.
Absolutely.
And that's like kind of the end of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I had a
Job is a tough
I had a
one.
thought when Ezra was talking, and it just
it slipped out. Job is a tough one. Then, Job went through like something crazy. Job went through like the unimaginable.
ultimate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And although Job didn't like curse God, be like, he did curse himself, really.
He
I
did.
don't know if you guys are
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He's like, cursed the day I was born.
Yep.
Wish I was never
Yep.
born. Why didn't I die when I was born?
Yep.
And it was his
He did.
friends that
Yeah.
sat with him on the ground, I think for like 7 days, 3 days, something like that. And they reassured him and helped his faith along. So it's not always an individual.
Absolutely.
Like whenever your faith seems to be running out, it's good for people around you to help
Build you up. Yes. And this doesn't come from his wife. It came from a friend.
Yes.
Outside of his home.
Outside
It's So it's kind of like reverse of Joseph. Right? You never know, and that's why we need everyone in the nation, right? Because we never know who's going to be there to pick us up when we fall. And sometimes we do fall because we're not perfect. None of us are.
I mean, she's grieving also. You know what I'm saying? She's going through she probably don't have the strength for herself. You know what I'm saying? So
because she already lost her children
she
too.
Lost everything. Also.
Yeah.
So she's grieving also, so she doesn't have the strength in herself. So that's why, again, Israel literally is a family, and we all need each other. When we're not strong enough, right? We may need others, right?
Yeah.
So I try to look at each story as if I'm there, because lots of times we look at, again, our foreparents, like they have, triple or 4 times the strength as
like
we
a
do.
fairy tale.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I like this story.
Yeah.
And we kind of like take the humanness out of it.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And but also I was thinking, even with all the stories in the Bible, all the examples that we have in the Bible, we know that our God loves to show off, right? Like he wants to show his glory. He wants to show, I could do this and I could do that. And a lot of times when we're going through, and he uses us to do that, right? And a lot of times when we're going through certain things, it's just him, not just testing us to, make sure that we see if we actually do trust him, but also him showing the world that we could be down today, but tomorrow, because of who we serve and who our Father is, we're going to be way up there. And then everybody's going to be wondering, like, what just happened? Yeah. Like, who is this person?
Every time.
Exactly, right? He has to make a big show of it. Right. So most of our stories are men that, the God of Israel.
The ultimate marketer. I know how to market. Watch all the nations across here know.
Exactly. It's. So I look at it that way. Even today when you pray, you're like, let my life, be an example to the world out there. You know, that's a tricky prayer to prayer because, you know, a lot of things could happen.
As an example.
With you being exactly
Bad example. Like Saul, bad example.
No, not only that, you know, like I could literally be going through tribulations and then it's like, oh, then the God of Israel, you know, like brings me out of it. But am I really prepared for the tribulation part? For the walking through the fire part?
Yeah, to make it out.
To make it out on top, right? To give my God that opportunity to show his glory and show his mercy, right? So it really is dependent on us how much the God of Israel gives us or, you know, shows us. It really is just us. It depends on us. He's there. He's willing to do the work, right?
It says we limit the Holy One of Israel.
We do. We do. What a disservice, you know. Even when we decided we're not going to pray for things or we're not going to, you know, test the God of Israel, we really do limit him. Like, if we're going to decide that, okay, I'm not asking the God of Israel for nothing. If he gives me something, he gives me something. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Now he has nothing to do because nobody's asking for nothing. So he doesn't have to give anything, you know. So we really do limit the God of Israel. And he's willing to give us the world.
Yeah.
But because of a lack of faith, we don't get.
We don't get to reap all those benefits at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's true. It says the God of Israel, he wants to give us so much more than even what we even want. Like a lot of the things we even ask for,
We
like,
could even think
please,
of.
can I just get a little crumb? Can I just get, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just want peace, you know what I mean? But the God of Israel, he wants to give us the whole loaf, right? He wants to give us the whole shebang. So yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna read Job a little.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Where in
Let's
Job?
read Job. I think we're going to 23. I think we're gonna read some of his cries.
What are we reading?
Job. Sorry, we're gonna go to Job 23. Got it, Edward?
Job 23. Then Job answered and said, even today is my complaint bitter. My stroke is heavier than my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat.
I'm sorry. So this is just the little groundwork of Job's agony that he's going through.
So this is after.
So this is after he lost everything and he's going through this pain. He's being human, right?
Then Job answered and said, even today is my complaint bitter. My stroke is heavier than my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat. I would order my cause before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer me and understand that what he would say unto me. Will he plead against me with his great power? No, but he would put strength in me. There the righteous might dispute with him, so should I be delivered forever from my judge. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I cannot perceive him. On the left hand where he doth work, but I cannot behold him. He hideth himself on the right hand, that I cannot see him. But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. My foot hath held his steps, his way have I kept, and not declined. Neither have I gone back from the commandment of his lips. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. But he is in one mind, and who can turn him? And what his soul desireth, even that he doeth. For he performeth the thing that is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. Therefore am I troubled at his presence when I consider, I am afraid of him. For God maketh my heart soft, and the Almighty troubleth me. Because I was not cut off before the darkness, neither hath he covered the darkness from my face.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's.
So it's very interesting to see kind of Job's mental like talks, it's like he's like really, what's it called? Like he's almost like he can imagine like conversating. Like he said, if I could walk up to if I could walk up and just speak to God directly, like I would have so much like to say to defend like why this is happening, to my life. But yet at the same time, I already know what his response would be.
Right.
Like instead of fighting back or some sort or it becoming an argument, I know that he would just put more strength in me. So it's like his perspective is very it's very strengthening in a way, and to see like his mental endurance to maintain the way he thinks.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Job 38, we read the God of Israel is bringing him back from, it says, then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare if thou hadst understanding. Whom has laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who has stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations therefore fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy, or who shut up the sea with doors, when it brake forth, as if it had issues out of the womb? When I made the cloud, the garment thereof, the thick darkness of the swaddling band for it, and break up for it my deceased place, and set bars and doors. So the God of Israel is reminding him here in this chapter, like, do you know who I am? Do you remember? I'm the one that created the clouds, the seas, I'm the one that gave you this knowledge. I am the I am, right? I am the person. So why are you pretty much doubting? Because he's like, why was I born? All these things, So he did doubt a little bit.
Yeah.
He just didn't curse.
Yeah.
So the God of Israel is like telling him, like, do you know who I am?
Everything I've done.
Everything that's created, it's because of me, right? So, sometimes in life we need that reassurance, because we're gonna doubt, and we're gonna falter, and because we are human, and and these stories is I feel like we have to stop seeing them. I don't know if everyone sees these stories as real, or if they view them as fairy tales, or because somebody told me they're so far removed from us. And the God of Israel was different in those days. He was closer to our people, they experienced him at a different level. They saw different signs and wonders, and now today is
Well, I think like even like for that type of thinking, it's like there's nothing new under the sun,
right?
And like I think
And the God of Israel didn't change.
Exactly, and everyone's parents can attest to the fact that there's nothing new under the sun. You speak to your parents to tell you everything you've gone through, like that's why I'm trying to raise you how I do, because I already know everything.
I've been through it,
right?
too.
And then their parents tell them that, and their parents tell them that.
Mm-hmm.
So what that tells you is that human nature repeats itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the same desires, we have the same thoughts, we have the same fears.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing that changes is just circumstance, right? The world is just a little different, right? Now we have cars. They had horses or camel.
Yeah.
But so back then they were more in tune spiritually. Now it's maybe we're less in tune spiritually. But once again, that's just a changing of our environment, right? That's the changing of our circumstances. But that doesn't mean that we're different, right? We're like who we are as people we still have the ability to have that relationship with our God, because we know from our covenant from Abraham that the blessings and the curses and that
Yeah.
covenant and those promises passed down for generations, not up until a certain point, not for 20 years, not until when the Bible runs out, right? But the covenant was promised to us for generations and every generation to come after that.
Right.
So it's not about our environment or the circumstances of like, well, most people don't do that, or like it's about who we are as a people, and like we have to express that. But like it's okay to express that even like in today's age, because yes, not everything is going to be the same. Like how things were in the time of the Gentiles weren't how things were when Abraham first took that step out of Ur, right?
Right.
New technology, new world. It seems like
Jesus
maybe
came
it's
into a whole different
Exactly.
new world,
Exactly.
a different world than Abraham and
Exactly.
Isaac was in.
Yeah. And so even when Jesus came, right, a lot of what he was saying was basically trying to tell them like how to live by the law in now. Like it feels like it's foreign or it's old, but really these concepts are just concepts that the God of Israel was just trying to instill in us. So it's just about how to understand how to apply it. And once again, that's why we have our culture here.
Yeah.
That we understand how to apply it in 2022.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think also for now, I guess why people would still think the way they think is because, we're just, our eyes are just being opened again because of the curse, right? So it is definitely a whole new experience, a whole new era. And we're like babes.
Yeah, new.
We're very new. We're like babes to this. Because it's not something, although it's something our forefathers or it's our culture, in this day and age, we're still babes.
It's new. It's new.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna feel foreign. It's gonna feel like, they had this, they knew themselves. It's foreign, but like at one point when we first left Egypt, all we wanted was Egypt. Right?
Yeah.
That's all we knew was
We
Egypt.
wanted to go back.
But eventually, you go fast forward in time when we get to David, right?
Yeah.
We have our own kingdom and we have our own functioning ecosystem. You know what I mean? So, like,
We were in the wilderness.
We were in the wilderness for a while. But I mean, fast forward in time, eventually you see that nothing changed. We just didn't know who we were, or we didn't have the same thing. So it's just, I think it's about we're in the beginning.
Yes.
It just started.
Yeah.
We are like babes,
Yeah.
but we also got to think from the mindset of forward, right? We can't be like how we were before.
We can't
think backwards.
We can't keep saying that. We don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like those,
we don't have that
eventually those
option
excuses
anymore.
die. Exactly, because when we were in the wilderness, we weren't supposed to be there for 40 years.
Yeah.
Right? It's the excuses of we're new, I don't know about this. So it's just like, well, we gotta keep our head, pushed forward, because that's the only way we're gonna get to where we're going to. If you want to see the milk and the honey, you gotta
put the work
walk through the wilderness. Exactly.
Put the work in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just want it to happen.
Exactly, and it may not happen how you think.
And nobody wants to put that work in.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to step out of their comfort zone. They just want it to happen. Well,
Exactly.
show me, but we all have to work towards that goal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what do you as like in our like young people? I want to go from the young people perspective. What would you tell your fellow young person, going forward, like, and having faith, like,
Faith.
like trusting in the God of Israel?
Well, I think you mentioned this question before, as far as whether faith and like maturity, like whether there's correlation, like does faith come with maturity, or some people just born with more faith. Like, what do you guys think though?
Like, how do you, how do you develop
I have my thoughts,
faith?
but I just
Like,
wanna hear
as
what
a
people-
as a young person, I mean, we could say, we have the foundation and all of that, but at the end of the day, we have to develop our own, or how do you prove the God of Israel? Like, test the God of Israel, like in your everyday life, And what would you tell your peers? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think to be able to feel confident in that connection, you like what you mentioned, you do have to kind of test it a little, like literally see if you could conquer the impossible, whatever that means for your life, and see what comes of it, and ask the God of Israel to listen to prayer, your message to him, and show him the path you're supposed to go on. I know personally, I ask for signs, whether that's dreams, whether that's a sense of stableness and positivity in my day-to-day life. I always ask to never go a day without feeling your presence, and that's not this literal presence, but that's really just feeling kind of settled in my skin, in my environment, and feeling good about what I'm doing and where I'm at and where I'm going. Yeah.
No, but is that faith? I think that's kind of not faith in a way, because that's reassurance. You know, like faith is almost like, okay, you had reassurance. Now you need to go through something in which you feel no reassurance. You know what I mean? That's, I think, where you exercise faith.
Yeah. I think as a young person who goes away from home for the first time, or for instance, first college, when we weren't that far away from home, there was a sense of independence, and you had to rely on yourself and the God of Israel. And it actually wasn't until maybe there was like a moment of like utter like lost, whether I had failed an exam or I had just had been really bad week, or that's kind of when my sense of personal relationships started to strengthen, and with that my faith, because I don't know, it's almost like the Job story, because I felt blessings all the time in high school, so I was being blessed because of my family, or just me personally. But when you feel you're most low, is sometimes when your faith gets built from not just from being blessed, but that's when you have to rely on
Exercise.
God.
And I think you guys kind of we're on a similar vibe, because I think, even to go back to Sarah's points, that all of that is so necessary. That kind of relationship, please be with me, that type of reassurance, because when you do feel that, and he does come and he does kind of provide those reassurances throughout your day, throughout your week, or whatever that good time is in which you really feel his presence and you feel like things are working for you, right? Those are necessary, and I think that's a part of the foundation we have to build, because you need that in your foundation, right? Because when it gets really hard, that's when it's just like what Naomi's saying, that's when that faith that you practiced by that daily ritual of please be with me, and seeing it worked out, as you do that more so, it builds kind of your confidence and your character, where faith, it kind of becomes more so who you are, right? You walk in it more so, because things get harder, and there's more on the line, there's more at stake, right? So I think both those points make sense.
It definitely grows as you get older. I think if you keep at it consistently and you take it seriously, I don't think a 6-year-old necessarily needs faith on a day-to-day basis.
So it does come with maturity.
I think it does get built, because it takes time, and you have to be in certain situations that will only come with ages.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can't have it through somebody else. You have to experience it yourself.
Exactly. Right.
Well, I think it comes with practice.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say maturity because instead of measuring maturity with age, it's not an age thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it comes with practice.
I don't think maturity is necessarily an age thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not an age thing, right?
Okay.
So going back to the 6-year-old, compared to 20, but it does grow with time.
Yeah.
But it just can't. I mean, a 21-year-old can have more, can be living in faith than a 60-year-old, living in faith. So it comes with you trusting and practice, right? You constantly checking in with the God of Israel, kind of having that relationship, with the God of Israel, and constantly checking in and testing him. I mean, I hate to, to keep, using that term, but you literally have to, test him, and ask him for things, and, and even if you don't get it, maybe, trying to figure out why and maybe going another way and maybe, okay, I see you said no, I'm going to try, constantly, because he knows that I need to pass this exam before I can, I need to graduate.
To move forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I took the test twice. Now I need to pass this exam. Okay, maybe I'm doing something, maybe I need to do something different. So I think it grows with time and practice, not necessarily, and again, that's your maturity in faith.
Exactly.
But it's not necessarily a maturity as
In
far
age.
as your age, it's a maturity in your practice of faith.
And also what helps is keeping track of your blessings, like what you asked for versus what you received afterwards. Because like we said before, it doesn't always happen the way you think it's supposed to happen or want it to happen. But then down the line, you'll see you even have a greater outcome than you even asked for.
Yeah.
So keeping track of okay, I asked for this, I got 10 times that.
Exactly.
That, where else is that?
I got something
from?
much better.
Yeah, I got something much better. So the next time it happens, the next time it looks like you're failing, you have that faith to be able to be like, I'm just going to wait and see if this is my journey where that leads me. Yeah.
I think a lot of the faith that you build as a young person is based on the obedience that you had when you were younger to your parents, who hopefully have a strong faith and can share that with you. Because as you're growing your foundation, you're constantly seeing these things happen for the family around you. And even if you don't understand quite what faith is, you don't have your personal relationship, you have the proxy by your family. And if you obey your family and your parents, and in that way, then it's easier to go back to that pattern and foundation when you're older.
Right.
Yeah. Like surrounding yourself with people of strong faith.
Yeah.
You'll always, have something energy to grab from.
People of like mind.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
It's true.
And I think, and also to address even just like the question, like as far as faith in relationship, like maturity, I think maturity isn't correlated with age. So I think that is also like another way to look at it too. So faith, I think, would correlate with maturity, but I don't believe that maturity correlates with age.
Right.
And so I think even if you look at like all the people that we even analyze today, they're all in different points of their lives, right?
Definitely.
Abraham is an old man.
Yeah.
Joseph
Just
is a
like
young
young
man,
boy.
right?
Yeah,
And Job
young
is
man.
probably middle-aged, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But but regardless though, like I think it's like when you read the scriptures and you see people who've expressed faith, they can be at completely different times in their lives. So it's not like there's a certain age in which, well, if you haven't been experiencing faith so far, then you have no chance. That's not true at all. It can come at any time or any age or any moment, or your job may come at the moment it's needed, right?
Exactly.
Oh, like we need you now,
Yeah.
right? And it's not necessarily an age thing. It's about, are you prepared for this job? And if you're not, then okay, well, you need to be prepared for it.
Right.
So, I mean, if you look at someone like LeBron, he may not have been in the right spot in his 30s, you know what I mean, in his 40s, in his 50s to do something like that. Maybe at that moment was when he needed to, right?
Yes.
At the maturity level he was then. Joseph was 17. At that maturity level, he was ready to go because he needed Joseph to kind of have some sort of a mental thing with him being kind of a kid, like maybe not going through so much yet. But I need you to kind of like, I need to throw you under the fire now because of who you're going to be or who you need to be.
Right.
So I think it's all about timing
and
also
to toughen you up a
yeah,
little
exactly.
bit.
So I think it's all about timing and just making sure that as Israelites that we're always just prepared for our time. We don't know when that time, but we need to exercise that faith. We don't always know it, and I think all the practices from everyone in the audience make so much sense because all that stuff is like so vital, to build it. Because you never know when you might be, now, okay, well, family's gone, friends gone. It's your turn. It's your turn to make that step. So, yeah. But I think it's very important to kind of to dwell on and to think about.
Yeah. And even with testing the God of Israel, which is good.
Yeah.
I feel sometimes we feel we don't have that right? To test the God of Israel.
Right.
But we could look at Gideon. I think it's in Judges. We could go to Judges. Judges. This is Judges
Judges 7?
6.
6?
Yeah. Six. 36? 6:36.
6.
Yeah. And Gideon said unto God, if thou wilt save Israel by thy hand, by mine hand. So this is a time when Israel was in captivity, and Gideon was chosen to lead the people out of captivity. But he wasn't sure about what he was doing. He wasn't sure about, whether God was actually talking to him or who was actually talking to him. So he decided to put it to the test, right?
Yeah.
And Gideon said unto God, if thou wilt save Israel by my hand, as thou hast said, behold, I will put a fleece of wood in the floor, and if the dew be on the fleece only, and it be dry upon all the earth beside, then shall I know that thou wilt save Israel by my hand, as thou hast said. So
this is
we see the opposite of what
testing. Yeah.
Abraham, though. We see the opposite of what, the God who told Abraham, leave, he left. He told Gideon to fight, and he's like, hold up. Hold up. Who are you? Prove yourself to me. Am I hearing this right? Maybe I'm imagining this. So let's put this to the test.
So he basically reassures himself in that faith.
Exactly.
By kind of reaching out and kind of taking that stance to be like, I'm gonna to communicate.
Yeah.
To communicate and let's make it clear.
He could have ignored it too,
right?
right?
Make it clear. This is where you need me to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's be clear.
And I think constantly checking in and constantly addressing, and we see it even when all the other people we talked about today, they all, if you read their stories, they all check in. There's moments where they check in, they constantly check in, like, hey, this is where you need me to go, this is where you need me to be, is this where you need me to is this what you need me to do? And I think having those moments of checking in, whether Gideon chose to do it very, very directly, very direct, like when I wake up in the morning and I look at this piece and it better have the thing on it. So I think his approach, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that approach. I think every person kind of has their different approach of how they express that faith.
But I feel, I like his approach, because I feel sometimes we don't feel like we have that right
But we do.
to tell the God of Israel,
exactly.
can you show me?
I think it's very human. I think it like we keep saying, these are people, people like us. They're not up on a pedestal.
Exactly.
So just like it's not 100% guaranteed we're gonna have the most faith ever at every single point of our lives.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do need to test, that connection. Make sure we're on the right path. I think that's valid.
Yes. So and again, even me reading this story, it made me confident of saying, okay, God of Israel, I'm going to test this theory. Yeah. Well, it made me test the theory.
And you also see that he's very humble about it.
He is.
Don't be angry with me.
Yes.
I'm just a man.
And he did it more than once.
Yes.
The God of Israel did it the first time. And he didn't say, okay, all right, I guess, you're it,
Yeah, because even as now, like sometimes, you pray for something that happened, you're like, wait a minute, was that a coincidence?
I know, right? Or was that really an answer?
Yeah, so it's, as Sarah said, it's just human nature
Yes.
to,
Question ourselves.
yeah, exactly, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and it's okay, and the God of Israel wants you to do that.
Yes.
He wants you to test
Yes.
him and try him and do all those
Yes.
things. He's,
Yes.
ask
He's
him.
he's waiting for us to ask
Ask
him.
him, yeah.
He's waiting for us to ask him. Someone told me the other day, I don't ask for anything when I pray. I just give 100% of me. And if anything comes back, I know it's the God of Israel. But I'm not asking,
Always have to ask.
And that's also limiting
Yeah.
the God of Israel, right? Because now he's just going to give you just enough, right? When you could have
World.
this.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you get it, when you accomplish it,
Now you're not necessarily thinking it's the God of Israel.
Yeah,
you're thinking,
it's
I gave 100%.
and you're thinking that
Yeah,
it's my ability, and so you're not
exactly.
giving the God of Israel his due. Since I
Exactly.
didn't ask for it,
Yeah.
I did it.
Well, thank you, but I
But
did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're not giving him his
You
due.
know?
And I think even with that, it's about balance. Because yes, there is a balance of like, you're not gonna ask for it like, at I want to be the king of the world. Like no, there's nothing like that. It's like the balance of understanding like, hey, and just like how we always bring it down to like a father and a child, right?
Mhm.
A child is like, you're not going to go to your dad or go to your parents and say like, oh, can I buy the candy in the store? It's like, okay, well, are you getting good grades? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Right? It's like, it's a normal relationship.
I give
as
and
far
take.
as- It's a give and
I
take.
give and take.
So you have
Yeah.
a place to voice your opinion.
Yeah.
You have a place to voice your concerns,
Mhm.
right? But at the end of the day, the parent is the master of the house. Right?
Exactly.
So whatever they want to give you or not want to give you is
Yeah.
up to them.
Which is how we see the God of Israel, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. We could ask, and if he doesn't think it's right for us, we're not going to get it. Right? So when we put those prayers and we send those prayers up, and we say, God of Israel, bless me with $1 million. And he and he doesn't bless you with $1 million. You're not ready for $1 million, right? Because $1 million doesn't make you happy. A lot of people get $1 million and don't even know where it went. So maybe you're not ready for $1 million, So with that said, I hope everyone enjoyed this lesson, and you out there, put the comments, likes, and subscribe. And also there's a link if you want to know more about our nation and our great God. There's a link at the bottom. Please fill out the application in that link and someone will get back to you. And thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you learned something. Peace.
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 Look in the sky. You can see the horses and the chariots, they ride out. I can see it in your eyes. Know you look scared, baby, don't be scared, it's alright. Just look at the size. There's more of us than to be with them, so we all fight. Look at the clothes. Pull the waist out like a ghost, rockin' all white. More of us than to be with them. Baby girl, you can be a friend. Come on, we gon' fight until the end. Baby, don't fold, don't bend. Put too much trouble on you. Hope one day you see it too. Got so much trouble on you. Hope one day we'll make the skies. You can see the horses and the chariots, they ride out. face, got us alright. So look at the size. There's more of us than ever with them. Some of y'all fight. Look at the clothes. Pull up with something like a ghost, rockin' all.